Hey there, I'm so excited to be sharing this adorable painting with you. We have our Moonlit Bats, and this is a really fun one for this time of year. It can be cute and whimsical, it can be a little spooky, a little sleepy hollow, and it's super easy to customize. You can add more bats, you can have, a witch flying on a broom. It's really easy. But for this one, I'm going to be using this light cream color. It's called Buttermilk. It's just like an off-white, really pretty and neutral. Then I have a little bit of honey brown and a little bit of midnight blue. And these are the only three colors we're going to need, plus a little bit of black and white. But you'll notice that I did outline the bats with the darker line. I just did that so that way I can paint a little bit over them and not lose the outline. So you can just see that there. And like I said, this is a really fun one, great for date night, girls' night, even kids' party. So I hope you enjoy painting this with me. All right, let's get started. And I have a little bit of that buttermilk. We're going to jump on in. Okay, so I'm going to start inside the moon, and I'm going to have a lot of texture, but we're going to use a lot of this kind of off-white buttermilk color. Then we'll add in some of the tan, and then we will add in a little bit of blue towards the end. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my biggest brush, and this is mainly for the background. You can use it later if you want, but once I'm done with it, I'll probably just clean it off and put it to the side. All right, so I'm going to start by making sure my brush is nice and clean. Add just a little bit of water to the bristles just to help the paint kind of move and flow. And you can see I'm using my big brush here, and I'm just going to start adding some of this buttermilk to the background. And you can see I'm painting over the lines of the bats. That's why I wanted to make sure that they were nice and dark so you could see them. That way I'm not stressed about like painting around them. I can just do a thin layer between them and around them. And you can kind of see I'm going in like X brush strokes or almost like a figure eight. I love a lot of texture in my paintings, so that's why I'm doing that. You do not have to do that. All right, now I'm going to grab a little bit of this kind of tan. It's pretty brown. I'm going to paint, like I said, kind of in that same textured back and forth motion just to kind of fill up the background. And I'm going to move this color past the moon, and then we'll work on the background in just a second. Okay, now I'm going to bring a little bit of this under the moon, just kind of give it a little bit of a glow, and then we'll slowly start to add in some of our blue as we paint down. I'm actually just going to use a paper towel to wipe out the extra paint. And then I'm going to go in with a kind of buttermilk off-white color, and I'm going to dip my brush in a little tiny bit of the blue and start adding that to the corners. Now, once again, less is more. If you find that you're kind of heavy with the blue or the brown or any other color, you can always go back and add more of that off-white color and just kind of have fun with this and play with it until you are happy. But like I said, kind of keep the middle lighter and then add those little accents of color towards the edges. Okay, I played with mine until I got it to a place where I liked it. Once again, this is our background. It doesn't have to be perfect. You want to actually kind of be like spooky and a little sleepy hollow, I guess. But once again, I'm going to take my brush and just wipe it off. Don't need to clean it. And then just grab a tiny touch of that black and then mix some blue in with it and just add a little bit of this kind of grayish blue to the edges. Once again, just give your background a little more depth, a little more spookiness. Okay, now that we have our background done, I'm going to go ahead and set the big brush to the side. Make sure you give them a good rinse. And I always kind of reshape the bristles and then just set it to the side. So I'm going to be using a combination of my medium and my little brush for the outlining and filling in of the moon, our three bats, and our spooky trees. So I'll probably do some of the outlining with the little brush and the filling in with the medium brush. So for the smaller areas, I'm going to use my little brush. And then for the bigger areas, I'm just going to use my medium brush because I can put more paint on the canvas faster. But just use whichever brush feels most comfortable in your hand. If you're comfortable with the medium brush, you could use that the whole time. If that gives you stress, remember painting is fun. So if it brings you stress, you're doing it wrong. And then you can use the little brush for that. One other little trick that I want to point out is as you're painting, by all means, move your canvas around. If it's easier to get some of these other angles by having your canvas either sideways or upside down, don't hesitate to move your canvas to make it easier to paint and to get some of those angles. Like I said, I'm just going to do the moon, I'll do the bats, and then I'll do our spooky trees all in black. And as I start to paint in the moon and the bats and the trees, your painting will have a little more dimension. And so this like kind of messy textured background will start to make a little more sense. So it's one of those, trust the process. Now to do our trees, I'm going to show you two options. The way that I like to do trees is I will take my paintbrush and make sure all of your bristles are kind of stuck together. And then I'll come to my paint and I will run my brush through the paint on both sides. So it kind of holds all the bristles together. And I'm going to hold my paintbrush up and down, not side to side, but up and down. And I'm just going to start at the top. I'm just going to pull down. Now, if I put a lot of pressure on that brush, you're going to get a fat line. If I just use a little bit of pressure, you're going to get a thin line. Now, some people that may freak you out. If that does not look like fun and you don't want to try that, use your little brush. And I sometimes will add just a little bit of water to my paint just to help it move or flow. And you could also do this exact same step with the little brush, but make sure you don't have too much water like I do, or you'll get little droplets. So like I said, I'm going to use the big brush, but you are more than welcome to use the little brush. And if you've been painting for a while and your paint's kind of thick and clumpy, either add just a tiny touch of water to it or get a fresh squirt. And each time I come back to get more paint on my paintbrush, if you're using the big one, it's called loading your brush. That's the fancy term, but putting paint on your bristles. But I go back and forth through the paint, and that helps, like I said, all the bristles stick together and to get this really cool like I said, kind of spooky. And you can, have your trees have a ton of branches, just a couple branches. It's totally up to you. I always think of Bob Ross and happy trees. We have a happy little tree that lives here and a little tiny branch that lives there. I think some of my best childhood memories were watching Bob Ross. And if your hand's a little shaky, let's say you drank too much coffee this morning, that is actually a great thing for this painting because we want the branches to kind of be spooky hollow, a little wonky, a little uneasy. And of course, you can add more or less. It's totally up to you. But there is our moonlit bats. I hope you guys love this.